The other thing I want to show you is a type of object or type of class that is often used, and it's called a collection class. And what we've been doing, what we did last time, was we added objects, or we instantiated objects inside a list so that each one had its own index and that sort of thing. That's sort of a basic way to approach it. If we want to be a little bit more sophisticated with our programming, what we would do is we would create what's called a collection class or a collection object. And the primary property of a collection object is a list that contains other objects. So if we wanted to be more sophisticated about our playlist, we would have a song class, and we'd also have a class called playlist that contains that list of songs, but it also contains methods for managing that playlist. Adding songs, changing ratings, all of that stuff would be contained in the playlist because it's managing that collection. So how does that look in code? Well, I have some code that I've pre-written here that I want to take a look at. And we're kind of using that fruit stand thing again. But let's just run through this really quick. And you can see it's pretty basic code. We've got a class called CLFruit where I have name, quantity, and price defined. And I've got some getters for quantity and price, and I've got some setters for quantity and price. I'm not doing a lot of error checking here, but I am just making sure that we have getters and setters for everything because that's the responsible way to build things. I also have a very basic structured string that will print out each line of fruit with its quantity and the price. Okay, the next class I have, this is not a child class, this is a collection class. And you can see here, the only property that it has is a list called inventory. So that list is what's going to contain my fruit class. And now I've got methods for adding fruit, removing fruit, selling fruit, buying fruit, changing price, all the things I want to do for my fruit stand. And then I've got a very basic string method that returns the entire list of my inventory. So once I have that all set in those classes, the rest of my stuff is pretty easy, right? So now, if I choose to add, I'm getting those three things, name, quantity, and price. And then I'm using my stand object, or the instance of my fruit stand, and the add fruit method, and then I'm passing that fruit class with the name, quantity, and price, and it just adds it for me. So we're just making it very, very simple because all of the functionality now is contained up here in these classes, mostly in the fruit stand, which manages all of my inventory. My fruit class has the information about the fruit, but that's mostly what it is. So when I run this now, you can see it's very, very simple to track what's going on. I'm using the add fruit method of the stand, and I'm giving it a fruit. Stand, remove fruit, by name. So you can very easily debug this because the menu choices have very little code under each one of them, and you can see exactly what's going on. And I know exactly where to look. If I try and buy a fruit and I have an error, I know exactly where to look for that error because it's going to point me straight back to this class, and I can go back to buy fruit right here. And I can find where that error is and what's going on. It gives us a lot of control and a lot of power over how we do things. So when I run this, you can see it'll add some basic inventory, but when I show the inventory, it's just calling the string method of the fruit stand class, but it shows everything in a nice orderly way. And if I want to add a new fruit, grapes, quantity, 20, and price, 50 cents. Okay, I can show my inventory. If I want to remove something from inventory, let's say I decided I don't want to sell apples anymore. I can remove apples. I can sell some fruit. Every time I sell fruit, if I have 30 bananas and I sell banana and I sold 20 of them, sold 20 banana, remaining 10, you can see my inventory is updated right here. So it's just keeping track of all that stuff. And it seems like, oh man, that's complicated with creating a class for the fruit. But you think about, what does the fruit do? The fruit it has information about the fruit, the name, the quantity, the price. That's what we need to keep track of. The rest are just getters and setters. The fruit doesn't really do anything. The fruit is the object that we're selling. The fruit stand is the thing that controls what we're doing. It controls the inventory, it controls how many, it controls buying and selling and all of that. It manages, it's one attribute, or it's one property, which is the list of the fruit. This is more heavy on information. This is more heavy on actions and controlling things and managing that inventory. So that is sort of the way that you would approach something like this, where we have an object that is the base object for something, and then we have a collection of those objects housed in another type of class or another type of object that would be the collection. So if we were to redo our playlist app with this method, what we would be doing is using a playlist class that contains a property called list, or li songs or something like that, that contains all of the song objects in our playlist. And then we'd have things like add songs, change ratings. All of those functionality pieces would be built into that playlist class. And it simplifies your final program because we're just saying what it does now. We're just calling those methods to act on that data. Okay, so I know that's sort of the peak complexity here. And by the way, I'll upload both of those pieces of code so that you can have access to those from Canvas. As soon as we're done here, I'll put those online. But that's sort of where we're at. So